Just after midnight, Malik Turner walked into the sweet potato field carrying a flashlight and a shovel. A thin layer of fog rested between the rows. The leaves looked healthy from a distance, but the ground told a different story. Small openings had appeared beneath the vines, and narrow paths ran through the grass toward the drainage ditch. Malik stopped beside a plant that leaned farther than the others. He wrapped one hand around the stem and pulled gently. The entire plant came free. Most of its roots had been chewed away. One young sweet potato remained attached, but deep tooth marks cut through its side. His father, Terence, stood several steps behind him. "That one looked fine yesterday," he said. Malik turned the damaged root beneath the flashlight. Above them, a pale wooden box rested on a tall post at the edge of the field. It had a round entrance, a sloping roof, and enough space inside for a large bird. It also appeared completely empty. A second box stood near the far end of the property. That one had shown no sign of life either. The Turner family had spent days building and installing them while the damage underground continued to spread. Then Malik aimed his flashlight toward the first box. A fresh scratch marked the edge of the entrance. Beneath the post lay a small grey feather that had not been there that afternoon. From somewhere beyond the old barn came a sharp, unfamiliar cry. A pale bird crossed the field without making a sound. It circled once near the box, passed through the flashlight beam, and disappeared behind the roof. Terence saw only the white underside of one wing. Malik remained still. If the bird returned, the empty box might finally become useful. If it did not, the voles would keep eating beneath the soil while the field remained green above them. Before we return to the beginning, subscribe if you enjoy quiet stories about people who notice what is happening where everyone else forgets to look. 4 weeks earlier, the Turner farm outside Russellville, Kentucky, had appeared healthy. The family grew sweet potatoes, pumpkins, squash, and seasonal vegetables for an autumn market. The land had belonged to them for several generations, and Terence knew nearly every low spot, drainage path, and stubborn patch of clay. The first sign of trouble was easy to ignore. A few small holes appeared near an overgrown ditch. Then several plants began turning yellow before the others. When Terence dug up the first damaged sweet potato, he found a shallow tunnel beside it and a wide bite missing from the root. More damaged plants followed. Voles moved through thick grass and loose soil, feeding on roots, stems, and young tubers. They rarely stayed visible for long. By the time a plant collapsed, much of the damage had already happened underground. Malik began walking the field each morning. He noticed that the worst section was closest to the ditch, where tall grass gave the animals cover. He also noticed something else. At dusk, a pale owl sometimes crossed the neighboring pasture. Instead of buying traps for every row, Malik began collecting old boards from a dismantled chicken coop. His younger sister looked at the growing pile. "You building a house?" she asked, "or opening a bird hotel?" A neighbor named Calvin stopped his tractor beside the fence and laughed when he saw the first finished box. "How many sweet potatoes can that thing eat?" he asked. Malik did not answer. He carried the box toward the most damaged edge of the field and asked his father for permission to install it. Terence studied the wooden structure. "You get 2 boxes," he said, "and they stay clear of the tractor." Malik nodded. He did not know whether an owl would ever use them. He only knew the field already had plenty of food for one. Malik's idea came from his grandfather, Isaiah Turner. Years earlier, before the old barn was repaired, a pair of barn owls had nested inside the upper beams. Isaiah remembered finding grey pellets beneath their roosting place. The pellets contained fur and tiny bones from the animals the owls had eaten. At night, Isaiah told Malik, those birds worked harder than most people knew. After the barn walls were repaired, the open gaps disappeared. The owls stopped nesting there. Isaiah did not promise that bringing them back would solve the vole problem. He only said that a hunter would not stay on land where it had nowhere safe to rest. Malik began watching the fields after sunset. Several times, he saw a pale owl moving low above the neighboring pasture. Its flight looked almost effortless. The bird passed over tall grass, paused briefly in the air, then dropped out of sight. That observation gave Malik hope, but it also revealed the greatest weakness in his plan. He could build a box. He could not order an owl to enter it. The bird would choose for itself. Malik studied the old nesting space in the barn and built the first box from the strongest salvaged boards. He added a sloping roof, drainage gaps near the bottom, and enough interior room for a pair of barn owls. The entrance was large enough for the birds but small enough to provide some shelter. Inside, Malik placed a thin layer of dry wood shavings. Terence helped him prepare a post at the edge of the field. The structure had to stand high enough for the birds to approach safely, but it also had to remain stable in wind. It could not lean over a tractor lane or fall near workers. They installed the first box near the damaged rows. The second went farther across the property, creating a comparison between two parts of the field. Malik placed small wooden markers near fresh vole holes. Every morning, he checked for new tunnels, damaged plants, feathers, droppings, scratches, or pellets beneath the boxes. The first week brought nothing. The shavings remained undisturbed. No feathers appeared. No tracks marked the entrance. Insects hid inside the corners, but no owl came. Calvin drove past again and looked up at the empty box. "Your guests must have missed the road sign," he said. Malik checked the bolts without responding. He knew an empty box was not proof that the idea was useless. The location could be wrong. The entrance might face bad weather. Nearby branches might make the structure easier for other animals to reach. Or the owls might simply need more time. Several nights later, Malik saw movement near the first box. The following morning, dry leaves filled part of the chamber. More leaves appeared the next day. A small branch stuck through the opening. Malik finally had a tenant. It was not the one he wanted. A squirrel had taken over the first owl box. Malik discovered it after setting a small trail camera on a nearby fence post. The animal climbed from an overhanging branch, jumped onto the roof, and disappeared through the entrance. Inside, it had built a thick nest of grass, leaves, and shredded bark. Malik did not reach into the box or attempt to remove the squirrel by hand. He waited until the animal left, then lowered the structure carefully and cleaned it. The mistake was obvious. The box stood too close to a tree. The branch gave squirrels a direct path to the roof. The second box had a different failure. Malik had turned its entrance toward the direction from which most spring storms arrived. After heavy rain, water blew inside and soaked the wood shavings. The back wall remained damp for days. No owl would choose a wet nesting chamber if a safer place existed. Then a strong wind revealed the most dangerous problem. The post supporting the first box had not been set deeply enough. The wet ground softened around it, and the structure began leaning toward the field. Terence saw it moving and ordered both boxes taken down. "A box that falls on someone is worse than no box at all," he said. Malik agreed. He had focused on attracting owls and ignored the safety of the people working below. The family rebuilt the system. The first box moved away from trees and heavy branches. Malik removed an unnecessary outer ledge that made access easier for squirrels. The second box was turned away from driving rain. Small drainage gaps remained at the bottom, and the roof extended farther beyond the entrance. Both posts were set deeper and braced more securely. Terence checked every connection before allowing the boxes to go back up. For another week, they remained empty. Meanwhile, the voles spread farther into the sweet potato rows. The family dug several test plants and found damaged roots beneath nearly every third vine in the worst section. Terence began considering immediate control methods. The harvest was still weeks away, and waiting for a wild bird might cost more produce than the family could afford. Malik did not argue. He knew the owls might never settle there. Then he found a small grey object beneath the corrected box. It looked like a dry lump of fur. When Malik broke it apart carefully with a stick, tiny bones appeared inside. An owl pellet. Fresh scratches also marked the entrance. The box still looked empty during the day, but something had visited during the night. Malik placed the trail camera farther away and stopped approaching the structure after sunset. 2 nights later, the camera captured a pale barn owl landing at the entrance. It remained only briefly. Then it flew away. The visit did not stop the vole damage, but it proved the box had finally been noticed. That same week, warm rain caused the grass around the ditch to grow rapidly. New vole paths appeared beneath the cover, and several more plants collapsed. The field was entering its worst period. Whether the owl stayed or disappeared would now matter more than ever. The The vole damage increased over several nights. Fresh soil appeared beside the sweet potato hills each morning. Leaves yellowed along one full section of the field, even though the plants had received enough water. Terence dug beneath the vines and found damaged tubers. One had been hollowed from the side. Another had already begun to rot around the bite marks. The family could not see most of the animals causing the problem. They saw only what remained after the voles moved on. Malik began spending evenings near the barn, far enough from the owl boxes that he would not disturb them. He kept his flashlight off. The field was never completely silent. Crickets moved through the ditch. Frogs called near the low ground. Dry leaves shifted under small animals. Near midnight, the pale owl returned. It flew just above the sweet potato vines, almost without sound. The bird crossed one row, turned sharply, and dropped into the grass. A few seconds later, it rose with a small animal in its talons. Instead of leaving the farm, it carried the prey toward the corrected box. Malik remained seated. The next morning, fresh pellets lay beneath the post. Over the following nights, the owl returned again. Then a second owl appeared. The pair began using the box more regularly. Malik could sometimes see one bird entering while the other continued hunting. The effect on the field was gradual. The voles did not disappear. New holes still appeared, and damaged sweet potatoes continued to turn up. But near the occupied box, the number of fresh surface paths began to decline. The far section near the empty box showed almost no improvement. Malik kept counting. He marked new tunnels near both areas and recorded damaged plants after each inspection. The difference was not perfect, but it became difficult to ignore. Near the active box, fewer new plants collapsed. Near the empty one, the damage continued almost at the earlier rate. Several weeks later, Malik heard faint sounds from inside the occupied box. The owl pair had begun raising chicks. Now the adults hunted more frequently. At dusk, one bird crossed the field, returned with prey, and left again within minutes. Malik found more pellets beneath the post, each containing evidence of small rodents taken from the surrounding land. Terence stopped asking when the wooden box would begin working. Instead, he asked Malik how many new vole paths he had counted that morning. Still, the family remained cautious. Owls were not machines. They did not hunt every part of the farm equally. Dense underground tunnels protected some voles. Areas far from the nesting box received less pressure from the birds. Weather also changed hunting behavior. During several stormy nights, owl activity slowed and fresh vole damage increased again. The method could reduce pressure. It could not guarantee control. As harvest approached, the leaves above the occupied section remained somewhat healthier than those farther away. But the true result was still hidden underground. The family would not know how much had survived until they began digging. The sweet potato harvest began on a cool autumn morning. Terence separated the crop into sections based on distance from the occupied owl box. Malik and his sister collected roots from the nearest rows first. Some were damaged. Several showed tooth marks. A few plants produced almost nothing. The owls had not eliminated the voles, but more of the nearby sweet potatoes were clean enough to sell. Farther across the field, near the box that had remained empty for most of the season, the family found a higher share of damaged roots. The difference was moderate. It did not turn a poor year into a perfect one, but it reduced losses in the area where the owl pair hunted most often. Terence held one damaged sweet potato in his left hand and a clean one in his right. Then he looked toward the occupied box. "You kept the measurements for that design?" he asked. "Yes," Malik said. "And the post depth?" "That too." Terence nodded. "Next spring, we build one for the other side." That was his recognition. He did not tell Malik that the owls had saved the farm. He understood that they had helped protect part of it. Calvin visited after the harvest. He no longer called the box a bird hotel. He stood beneath it and examined several gray pellets on the ground. "How do you know an owl made these?" he asked. Malik showed him the fur and small bones inside one broken pellet. He also explained what the system could not promise. A nesting box did not guarantee an owl would come. Squirrels and other animals might occupy it first. A wet, overheated, unstable, or poorly positioned box could remain unused for years. The structure had to be safe for birds and people. It needed secure posts, proper drainage, weather protection, and enough distance from traffic and equipment. The owls themselves could not remove every vole. Their effect depended on local bird populations, available prey, surrounding habitat, weather, and the distance between the nest and damaged crops. The Turner family continued checking the field and managing tall vegetation near the worst tunnels. They did not rely on the birds alone. The following spring, they installed one additional box at the opposite side of the farm. They did not cover every field with wooden towers. They chose a location with open hunting ground, safe access, and enough distance from the first nest. The original box remained above the sweet potato rows. One early morning, Malik walked beneath it while dew still covered the grass. The round entrance looked dark and empty. Then a pale barn owl moved forward until its heart-shaped face appeared in the opening. For several seconds, the bird watched the field. Then it disappeared into the box again. The structure had once looked like nothing more than an empty wooden container. Malik had learned that sometimes the best way to protect a farm was not to control every creature on it. Sometimes it was to leave room for the right one to stay.